March 15th, 2019. The Venetian Room, downtown Chicago. Vincent Torino had been washing outfit money for 3 decades. Never missed a payment, never asked questions. That's exactly why nobody warned him the man sitting across from him was Arturo Guzman. Vinny dealt his cards and grinned. You know what they say about El Chapo's brother? Should have stayed in construction. The table went silent. Arturo's hand never moved to his chips. 48 hours later, Vinny's daughter Sophia vanished from her federal courthouse parking garage. No witnesses, no cameras, no trace. What happened next became the reason 3 major crime families held emergency meetings. The FBI opened a task force because of it. And for months after, when people in Chicago talked about crossing the cartels, they always came back to Vinny Torino. The man who made a joke. The man who learned some words can't be taken back. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The call came at 3:17 a.m. while Vinny Torino was staring at his daughter's empty apartment, Sophia's coffee mug still sitting in the sink from 2 mornings ago. Detective Martinez's voice crackled through his phone with the kind of professional detachment that meant bad news was coming wrapped in procedure. Mr. Torino, we found your daughter's Honda Civic in the Calumet River. Vehicle's been submerged approximately 36 hours. Vinny's hand tightened around the phone. Through Sophia's living room window, Chicago's skyline glittered like broken glass against the darkness. Somewhere out there, people were making deals that destroyed lives. He'd been one of them for 30 years. Was she? His voice caught. Did you find her body? No, sir, just the vehicle. We're treating this as an abduction. Vinny closed his eyes. In his world, when someone's car ended up in the river without them, it meant one of 2 things: they were already dead, or someone wanted leverage. Given what had happened at the poker game, he suspected the latter. I'll be right there. Actually, Mr. Torino, there's an FBI agent here who'd like to speak with you first. Agent Sarah Chen. She says it's connected to your daughter's work at the federal courthouse. The line went dead. Vinny set the phone down and walked to Sophia's kitchen window. His reflection stared back, 58 years old, gray at the temples, wearing a $2,000 suit over 3 decades of carefully buried secrets. He'd built Torino Construction into one of Chicago's most successful firms, laundering millions for the outfit while keeping his family completely separate from that world, or so he'd thought. His mind replayed the poker game for the 100th time. The Venetian Room, his private club above the construction office, 8 players around green felt, cigarette smoke curling toward antique chandeliers. He'd been trying to impress Miguel Santos, who claimed connections to Mexican shipping routes that could help expand the outfit's cocaine distribution. Santos had brought a friend, quiet guy in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Arthur Gonzalez, said he was in import-export, kept his cards close, spoke English with just a trace of accent. When the conversation turned to cartel politics, Vinny had seen his opening. You know what they say about El Chapo's brother, he'd said, dealing the next hand. Should have stayed in construction. The table had gone silent. Arthur, who Vinny now knew was Arturo Guzman, had set down his cards with surgical precision. Is that what they say? Arturo's voice had been soft as silk. Well, you know, construction's honest work. Nobody gets shot over concrete. Vinny had chuckled, completely missing the way every other player had suddenly found their cards fascinating. Arturo had nodded slowly. Honest work. Yes, I can appreciate that. He'd stood then, straightening his cufflinks. Gentlemen, it's been educational. After he'd left, Santos had gone pale. You know who that was, right? Vinny's blood had turned to ice when Santos explained. Arturo Guzman. El Chapo's surviving brother. The man who'd watched federal agents gun down his other brother just 6 months ago. The man who'd inherited a cartel empire and all its grievances. Now Sophia was missing. Vinny's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Your daughter has beautiful eyes. Shame if something happened to them. Millennium Park, Crown Fountain, tomorrow 8 p.m. Come alone. His hands shook as he typed back, What do you want? The response came immediately to discuss construction and jokes, and how some words cost more than others. Vinny deleted the messages and pulled out a burner phone he kept for outfit business. Speed dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Torino? Tommy Marconi's voice was gravelly with sleep and suspicion. Christ, it's almost 4 in the morning. I need to talk to the old man. It's about the Mexicans. What Mexicans? We don't do business with. The ones I just accidentally fucked with. Tell Castellano it's about his construction contracts. He'll understand. A pause. Vinny, what did you do? I made a joke. 20 minutes later, Vinny stood in the Calumet River police staging area, watching divers pull Sophia's waterlogged Honda from the murky water. Agent Chen appeared beside him, Asian American, early 40s, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Torino, I'm sorry about your daughter. I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some questions. About Sophia's cases, which one do you think? Actually, about your construction business. Specifically your concrete suppliers, your waste management contracts, and your rather interesting banking relationships. Vinny's blood chilled. The FBI wasn't just investigating Sophia's disappearance. They were investigating him. I think I need a lawyer. Agent Chen smiled without warmth. I think you need to consider your priorities, Mr. Torino. Because the people who took your daughter, they're not the only ones watching your every move. As Sophia's car was loaded onto a flatbed truck, Vinny realized he was caught between two forces that could destroy everything he'd built and everyone he loved. The joke was on him. If you're hooked and want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes, hit that subscribe button right now. Tomorrow we dive into Vinny's 30-year empire of secrets and meet the daughter who's been hunting him longer than the cartel has. The drive from the Calumet River to Torino Construction took Vinny through neighborhoods that told the story of his life in reverse. Past the gleaming high-rises of downtown where Sophia worked, through the gentrified districts where his money had helped transform old warehouses into luxury condos, and finally into the South Side Industrial Corridor, where everything had started 30 years ago with a handshake and a promise to ask no questions. His hands gripped the steering wheel of his Cadillac Escalade, knuckles white against the leather. The pre-dawn streets were empty except for delivery trucks and the occasional patrol car, their headlights cutting through the October gloom like accusations. Every few blocks he passed another one of his projects, a shopping center here, an office complex there, monuments to his legitimate success built on foundations of dirty money. Agent Chen's words echoed in his mind. They're not the only ones watching your every move. The Torino construction headquarters occupied a full city block, a modest 4-story brick building that had housed 3 generations of honest contractors before Vinny bought it in 1993. Back then, he genuinely intended to run a clean operation. Fresh out of community college with a business degree and dreams of building something his daughter could be proud of, he'd sunk every penny of his inheritance into equipment and permits. The outfit connection had started small. Tommy Marconi's cousin needed some foundation work, cash only, no permits required, easy money for a struggling contractor with a 6-year-old daughter and a wife battling cancer. One job became 2, then 5, then a steady stream of projects that asked no questions about where the funding came from or why the invoices needed to be structured just so. By the time Maria died in '97, Vinny was washing nearly $1 million a year through legitimate contracts, inflated material costs, and phantom subcontractors. By the time Sophia graduated law school, that number had grown to 8 figures. Vinny parked in his reserved spot behind the building, next to the dumpster that had hidden more than construction debris over the years. The security light flickered overhead, casting shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. He'd installed the cameras himself, making sure they covered every angle except the loading dock where certain deliveries arrived after hours. His office on the 4th floor overlooked the rail yards where freight cars carried legitimate cargo alongside containers that held the outfit's expanding drug operation. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built his empire by providing the infrastructure for other people's crimes while keeping his own hands relatively clean. The office itself was a study in comfortable deception. Family photos lined the credenza behind his desk, Sophia's law school graduation, the 2 of them at Cubs games, her swearing-in ceremony at the federal courthouse. His daughter had no idea that the money paying for her private school education came from the same sources she now prosecuted. Vinny settled into his leather chair and opened the safe hidden behind a framed photo of Maria. Inside, beneath stacks of legitimate contracts and business documents, lay the real records. Bank routing numbers for accounts in Barbados and Delaware, invoices for concrete that was never poured, steel that was never delivered, permits for projects that existed only on paper, 30 years of careful documentation that could bring down half the outfit's money laundering operation. His phone rang. The display showed Sophia's number. Sophia? His voice cracked with desperate hope. Vincent. The voice was male, accented, unfamiliar. Your daughter cannot come to the phone, but she asked me to tell you she loves you. Vinny's chest tightened. Let me talk to her. Soon. First we discuss your sense of humor. Tell me, Vincent, what makes construction work honest? The question hit him like a physical blow. His own words from the poker game thrown back at him through his daughter's phone. I didn't know who you were. It was just a joke. Yes, we established this. But jokes reveal truth, do they not? You believe your work is honest, clean, separate from the blood that paid for it. Vinny closed his eyes, seeing Sophia's face in every photo around his office. What do you want? 24 hours ago, you had a daughter who respected you, a business that provided for you, a future that seemed secure, all built on what you call honest work. Arturo's voice carried the weight of grief and rage. My brother had these things too. Then federal agents made a joke of his life. Sophia has nothing to do with. She has everything to do with it. She is federal prosecutor, yes? She hunts men like you and me. The difference is, Vincent, I know what I am. You still pretend. The line went dead. Vinny stared at Sophia's graduation photo, remembering her valedictorian speech about justice and integrity. She'd looked right at him from that podium, her eyes bright with purpose, completely unaware that her father embodied everything she'd dedicated her career to destroying. Now his sins had swallowed her whole. This qualified. The whiskey burned, but it didn't wash away the taste of fear. He was pouring a second when his computer chimed with an email notification. The sender line made his blood freeze. sofiatorinuestoj.gov. But Sophia couldn't send emails. Sophia was... He clicked it open with shaking hands. Dad, I know you're reading this. I know you're scared. I know you think you understand what's happening, but you don't. There are things about me you need to know. Things about us. Check the safe. Look behind Mom's picture. The real one, not the frame. Vinny stared at the screen. Sophia's email account. Sophia's writing style, but impossible. Unless she'd scheduled it somehow. Set it to send automatically if... If what? He spun toward the credenza, toward Maria's photo. Not the frame behind the picture. His hands shook as he lifted the silver frame, revealing the original photograph underneath. Maria in her hospital bed, holding newborn Sophia, both of them glowing despite the circumstances. He'd kept this one hidden because it hurt too much to see them both so young, so hopeful, so unaware of what was coming. But now he saw something else. A corner of white paper, barely visible, tucked behind the photo itself. With surgical care, he extracted it. A small envelope, yellowed with age, with his name written in Sophia's careful handwriting. But not recent handwriting. This looked like her penmanship from high school, maybe college. Inside was a single sheet of legal paper, covered in his daughter's precise script. Dad, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and you're probably blaming yourself. Don't. I've known about the money laundering since I was 16. I've known about the outfit connections since law school. I've known about the Barbados accounts, the phantom contracts, and the Friday night meetings with Tommy, Marconi since my second year at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I also know you think you kept me separate from your world. You didn't. You just kept yourself separate from mine. The letter slipped from Vinny's nerveless fingers. 16. She'd known since she was 16, which meant Task Force Spotlight has been investigating you for 3 years. I've been leading it for 18 months. Every family dinner, every Cubs game, every time you asked about my cases, I was building a case against you. But Dad, I never wanted to destroy you. I wanted to save you. The Torino construction records you think are hidden? I copied them 2 years ago. The safe behind Mom's picture? I've had the combination since high school. Maria's birthday, my birthday, your anniversary. You're not as careful as you think. If something happens to me, it's because we're close to rolling up the whole network. The Chicago outfit, the Mexican connections, all of it. But there's something else. Something bigger. The cartel contact you've been washing money for? He's not just any contact. He's been funneling information to us for months. Vinny's vision blurred. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Miguel Santos is FBI, Dad. Deep cover for 3 years. The poker game wasn't random. We set it up to flush out Arturo Guzman. We knew he was in Chicago, we just didn't know under what identity. Your joke wasn't a mistake. It was the trigger we needed. If you're reading this, the next phase has started. Arturo will contact you. He'll want revenge, leverage, something to hurt the federal agents who killed his brother. He'll use me to get to you, and you to get to the outfit. Don't trust the FBI. Don't trust the outfit. Don't trust anyone except Agent Chen. She's the only one who knows about this letter, and she's under orders to protect you if the operation goes sideways. Most importantly, don't try to save me by sacrificing yourself. The only way this ends is if you trust me. I'm not the victim here, Dad. I'm the hunter. I love you. Mom would be proud of us both. Sophia. The real meeting isn't tomorrow at Millennium Park. It's tonight. Check your burner phone. Vinny's hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the letter. His daughter, his baby girl who used to build sandcastles and believe in fairy tales, had been hunting him for 3 years, had been manipulating him, studying him, preparing to destroy everything he'd built, and she'd been doing it to save him. The burner phone buzzed. New message, Pier 19. 1 hour. Come alone or she dies knowing you chose your pride over her life. Vinny looked around his office, at the photos, the awards, the legitimate face of his illegitimate empire. In 1 hour, 30 years of careful deception would end. He just didn't know who would be left standing when it did. 58 years old, and he'd just learned his daughter had been playing chess while he was playing checkers. For 3 years, his first instinct was to run, empty the Barbados accounts, grab his passport, and disappear into whatever hole rich men used when their worlds collapsed. His second instinct was to call Tommy Marconi and come clean about the whole mess. Let the outfit decide how to handle a federal prosecutor who'd been using her own father as bait. Instead, he did what he'd always done when cornered. He tried to fix it himself. The burner phone showed 43 minutes until the Pier 19 meeting. 43 minutes to figure out how to save Sophia without destroying everything else. There had to be an angle, a way to negotiate out of this nightmare. He hadn't survived 30 years in the gray area between legitimate business and organized crime by panicking at the first sign of trouble. Vinny pulled up his contacts and dialed Mickey Torino, his younger brother who'd stayed clean, run an actual construction company in Milwaukee. Never asked questions about Vinny's success. Jesus, Vinny, it's not even 5 a.m. What, Mickey, I need you to do something for me, no questions. A pause. Mickey had always been the smart one, the one who'd seen which way the wind was blowing and chosen a different path. This about Sophia? How did you— Tommy Marconi called an hour ago, said there might be trouble coming your way, that I should keep my distance for a while. Mickey's voice carried 30 years of careful neutrality. That's my answer, Vin. Whatever this is, I've got kids to think about. The line went dead. Vinny stared at the phone, feeling the first cold touch of absolute isolation. Mickey had been his backup plan, his clean connection if everything went sideways. Now even his own blood was cutting ties. He tried Anthony Castellano next, the outfit's current underboss and Vinny's handler for the past decade. The phone rang once before clicking to voicemail. Not disconnected, ignored. A message as clear as a funeral wreath. Panic started crawling up Vinny's throat like bile. He grabbed the bottle of Jameson and took a long pull, trying to think through the alcohol haze. Sophia's letter had said not to trust the FBI, not to trust the outfit. But she'd also said Agent Chen could be trusted, and Chen had been asking about his banking relationships at the crime scene. Maybe the FBI was his way out. Flip on the outfit, give them everything they needed to dismantle the money laundering operation. Full cooperation in exchange for Sophia's safety and witness protection for both of them. It would mean losing Torino Construction, losing his life in Chicago, but Sophia would be alive. Vinny reached for his phone to call Agent Chen, then stopped. Sophia's letter had been clear about one thing. The cartel wanted leverage against federal agents. If Arturo Guzman thought the FBI was backing down, thought a federal prosecutor's father was capitulating to save his daughter's life, would that make Sophia more valuable alive or more dangerous dead? The office suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in like a tomb. 30 years of compartmentalization was collapsing into a single terrible moment where every secret, every compromise, every rationalization came due at once. Vinny walked to the window overlooking the rail yards. In the distance, a freight train moved slowly through the pre-dawn darkness, its cars full of cargo that could be anything: legitimate goods, contraband, people, secrets. The same ambiguity that had defined his entire adult life. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number, 20 minutes, Vincent. Your daughter is asking for you. The words hit him like a physical blow. Sophia was alive, conscious, afraid. His baby girl was sitting somewhere in the dark, probably tied up, probably hurt, wondering why her father hadn't saved her yet. But which father was she asking for? The successful contractor who'd given her every advantage? Or the criminal who'd built that success on dirty money and dirtier compromises? Maybe there was no difference. Maybe there never had been. Vinny grabbed his coat and car keys, his movements sharp with desperate purpose. He couldn't trust the FBI, couldn't trust the outfit, couldn't trust anyone except the daughter who'd been investigating him for 3 years. The daughter who'd called herself the hunter but was now the prey. Pier 19 waited in the darkness like a judgment. As he headed for the elevator, Vinny's phone rang one more time, Tommy Marconi's number. "Don't answer it," he said aloud to his empty office. "Don't answer it, don't answer it, don't." But his thumb was already swiping to accept the call. Vinny stepped into the elevator, watching the floors count down as his world collapsed upward. "Tommy, I can explain." "No, you can't. You think we didn't know about your daughter? You think we didn't know she was building a case?" Tommy's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "We've been watching this play out for months, Vincent, waiting to see which way you'd jump when the time came." The elevator reached the lobby. Through the glass doors, Vinny could see his Escalade waiting in the pre-dawn darkness, but the distance felt infinite. "She's my daughter, Tommy. She's all I have left. She's a federal prosecutor who's been using you as bait, and you're about to walk into a cartel trap to save her." A pause filled with 30 years of shared history turning to ash. "The outfit doesn't have sentimental attachments, Vincent, you know that." Vinny pushed through the doors into the October cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Pier 19 is a kill box. Arturo Guzman didn't take your daughter for revenge. He took her because someone told him exactly how to hurt you the most. Someone who knew about Sophia's investigation, about the federal task force, about your pressure points." The keys slipped from Vinny's numb fingers, clattering against the asphalt. "You gave her up. The outfit gave her up. You were always going to be a liability once she got too close. This way we control the narrative. Grieving father walks into cartel ambush trying to save his prosecutor daughter. Very tragic, very clean." Vinny bent to retrieve his keys, his vision blurring with rage and terror. Sophia's letter had warned him not to trust anyone, but she'd miscalculated. She'd assumed her father was just a money launderer caught between competing interests. She hadn't realized he was expendable to all of them. "There's another way," Tommy continued, his voice almost gentle. "Walk away. Right now. Drive to O'Hare, get on a plane, disappear into whatever retirement you've been planning. Sophia dies, but you live. The operation burns down, but you're clear of the wreckage." Vinny climbed into the Escalade, his movements mechanical. "She's my daughter. She's been hunting you for 3 years, Vincent. She doesn't see you as her father. She sees you as her case, her career maker. The big fish that proves she's not just some privileged contractor's daughter playing at being a prosecutor." The words hit deeper than Tommy intended, because part of them rang true. How many family dinners had Sophia asked casual questions about his business? How many times had she steered conversations toward his banking relationships, his project financing, his cash flow? He'd thought she was showing interest in the family business. She'd been gathering evidence. "The meeting at Pier 19, Vinny said, starting the engine. "How many people know about it?" "Everyone who matters. FBI's got surveillance teams positioned. Arturo's got his people ready. The outfit's got cleanup crews standing by. The only question is whether you're smart enough to disappoint them all." Vinny pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward the lake. "And if I don't show, then your daughter learns what it feels like to be abandoned by everyone she trusted. The FBI can't move without risking their operation. The outfit won't move because it doesn't serve our interests, and her loving father chose his own skin over hers." Tommy's voice carried no emotion now, just cold calculation. "She dies slow, Vincent, alone, wondering why nobody came for her." The phone went silent, leaving Vinny alone with the weight of impossible choices. Through his windshield, the city looked the same as always, his projects rising against the skyline, his name on buildings and billboards. 30 years of success built on foundations of sand and blood. But now he could see the infrastructure underneath, the network of corruption that connected every legitimate dollar to something dirty. Sophia had seen it too, had mapped it, documented it, prepared to tear it all down. Not because she hated her father, but because she believed in something bigger than family loyalty. The irony was suffocating. His daughter had become everything he'd secretly hoped she would be: principled, fearless, uncompromising. And those very qualities were going to get her killed because of who her father was. Vinny's phone buzzed with a new message. This time, the photo attachment made him pull over and vomit onto the asphalt. Sophia, bound and gagged, her federal prosecutor's badge pinned mockingly to her shirt. Her eyes were open, alert, angry rather than afraid. Even now, even tied up in some cartel safehouse, she looked like she was planning her next move. 10 minutes, Vincent. Your choice: die with dignity, or live knowing you failed her when she needed you most. Vinny wiped his mouth and got back in the car. For the first time in 30 years, he was going to make a decision based on what was right instead of what was profitable. It would probably get them both killed. He sat there for 30 seconds, gathering the courage to die for his daughter, when his phone rang. Agent Chen. "Mr. Torino, do not get out of that vehicle." Her voice was urgent, breathless. "We have a problem." Vinny's hand froze on the door handle. "Sophia said I could trust you." "Sophia's not where you think she is." The words came in a rush. "We lost contact with the surveillance team 20 minutes ago. This isn't the cartel's operation anymore. This is something else entirely." "What are you talking about?" "Your daughter." "Jesus, Torino, your daughter orchestrated her own kidnapping." The world tilted sideways. Through his windshield, Vinny could see figures moving in the shadows near the pier. Too many figures, positioned too strategically to be random. "That's impossible. I saw the photo. She was tied up. She was exactly where she wanted to be." Chen's voice carried a mixture of admiration and horror. 3 years of investigation, and we never realized we weren't running Sophia Torino. She was running us. Vinny's vision blurred. The letter, the hidden photograph, the perfect emotional manipulation designed to make him trust her completely while questioning everyone else. The Federal Task Force was her creation, her operation, her team. Chen's breathing was ragged, like she was running. Task Force Spotlight doesn't exist in any official FBI database, Vincent. Sophia assembled a group of federal agents and prosecutors who thought they were part of a legitimate, deep cover operation targeting organized crime. But the real target was always you. "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Because she needed you to trust her completely before she destroyed you. Every money laundering charge, every RICO predicate, every banking violation, it all traces back to evidence she collected during family dinners and Cubs games. She's been wearing a wire to Christmas dinner, Vincent." Vinny closed his eyes, seeing 3 years of memories reframe themselves in hideous clarity. Sophia asking about the Barbados accounts during Maria's memorial service. Sophia wondering about Tommy Marconi over birthday cake. Sophia showing interest in his construction projects while building a federal case that would send him to prison for the rest of his life. "The kidnapping," he managed, "was designed to force you into making contact with Arturo Guzman under emotional duress. She needed you panicked, desperate, willing to say anything to save her life. Every call you made, every text, every desperate move, it's all been recorded. She's got you on tape offering to flip on the outfit, promising to reveal cartel financial networks, admitting to 3 decades of money laundering." Through the darkness, Vinny saw a familiar figure walking toward his car. Not Arturo Guzman, not cartel enforcers. Sophia, unmarked, unbound, very much in control. "She's here," Vinny said. "Get out of there now, whatever she's planning." Vinny ended the call and stepped out of the Escalade. His daughter approached with the confident stride of a federal prosecutor closing her biggest case, her heels clicking against the asphalt with the rhythm of a countdown timer. "Hello, Dad." Sophia's voice carried no warmth, no fear, no trace of the terrified daughter who'd supposedly been begging for rescue an hour earlier. "Thank you for coming. You've been lying to me for 3 years. I've been doing my job for 3 years." She stopped 10 feet away, close enough for conversation but far enough to run if necessary. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been, pretending to love a man who spent my entire life washing blood money?" The words hit like physical blows. "Sophia, everything I built was for you, for your future. Everything you built was for your ego. Mom's medical bills were paid by legitimate insurance, Dad. My education was funded by clean money from the first 5 years of Torino construction. Everything after that, the expansion, the luxury, the empire. That was just you choosing to be a criminal because it felt powerful. Sophia pulled out her phone, and Vinny realized she'd been recording this conversation from the moment she'd approached. Vincent Torino, you are under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. You're not FBI. The realization hit him like a revelation. Chen said Task Force Spotlight doesn't exist. You're not even a real federal prosecutor. Sophia's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and hungry underneath. I'm exactly what you made me, Dad. Someone who learned that family loyalty is just another kind of currency, and you taught me to always negotiate from a position of strength. Behind her, Vinny could see armed figures emerging from the shadows, not cartel enforcers, not FBI agents, but private contractors. Sophia's real team. His daughter smiled with Maria's face in a stranger's eyes. The question now is, how much is your freedom worth to you? Your little girl grew up in a house built on blood money. Sophia gestured to her team, who spread out in a defensive perimeter. Every Christmas present, every vacation, every advantage you gave me, it all came from washing money for killers and drug dealers. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out eventually? I kept it separate. I kept you clean. There is no clean, Dad. There's only willful ignorance. Sophia's voice carried years of accumulated rage. Do you remember when I was 16 and asked you why Tommy Marconi's construction company never won any city contracts despite bidding lower than everyone else? Vinny felt his throat constrict. You said you were thinking about studying business. I was thinking about studying you. Even then I knew something was wrong. The way conversations stopped when I entered rooms. The way Mom would get that look whenever certain names came up. Sophia stepped closer, her federal prosecutor's mask slipping to reveal something raw underneath. I spent my teenage years watching my mother die slowly, while pretending not to notice that her husband was a criminal. Your mother never knew. My mother knew everything. The words hit like a slap. She knew about the offshore accounts, about the outfit connections, about what you really were. But she also knew about the cancer, and she decided dying married to a criminal was better than dying alone and poor. Vinny's legs nearly buckled. Maria never said, because she loved you despite what you'd become, but I don't have terminal cancer, Dad. I don't have to make those compromises. Sophia pulled out a tablet, swiped to show banking records. $18 million in laundered funds over the past 5 years. Conservative estimate. The real number is probably closer to 30 million. Those are legitimate business transactions. Legitimate businesses don't route payments through Barbados, shell companies controlled by the Chicago outfit. Sophia's voice turned clinical, prosecutorial. Legitimate contractors don't structure cash deposits to avoid federal reporting requirements. Legitimate fathers don't teach their daughters that family loyalty means looking the other way when people get hurt. The wind off the lake carried the scent of approaching snow, winter coming early to close off escape routes. Vinny looked at his daughter, at this stranger wearing his daughter's face, and felt 30 years of carefully constructed identity crumble into dust. So this is your endgame? Destroy your own father for what? Career advancement? For justice. Sophia's eyes blazed with evangelical certainty. For every small contractor you undercut with dirty money. For every legitimate business that couldn't compete with mob-subsidized bids. For every family that suffered because men like you decided the rules didn't apply to them. Men like me. Vinny tasted blood and realized he'd bitten through his tongue. I'm not a killer, Sophia. I never hurt anyone directly. Indirectly is still hurt. She gestured toward the city skyline. That housing project on West Division, how many corners did you cut when you knew the outfit was laundering money through the budget? Those are real families living in substandard conditions because Daddy needed to wash Tommy Marconi's drug money. The accusation landed with surgical precision. Vinny remembered that project, remembered the pressure to come in under budget, remembered not asking questions about why certain subcontractors were non-negotiable. The building passed inspection. The building passed inspection because you paid the right people to look the other way. Sophia's tablet showed building permits, payment records, a paper trail 3 years in the making. 12 families, Dad. 12 families living with faulty electrical work and compromised structural integrity because you prioritized profit over safety. I fixed those problems. You went back and paid for repairs out of pocket when you realized your federal prosecutor daughter might find out. That's not conscience, that's damage control. Sophia's voice carried the weight of absolute moral certainty. And it's too little, too late. Behind her, one of the contractors spoke into his radio. Package secured, moving to Phase 2. Vinny felt the noose tightening around his neck. What's Phase 2? Sophia smiled with Maria's mouth and eyes that belonged to a stranger. Phase 2 is when you choose between destroying the Chicago outfit or spending the rest of your life in federal prison. See, Dad, I learned something important from watching you all these years. Everyone has a price. Everyone can be turned. Everyone will choose survival over loyalty when the alternative is losing everything. The lake stretched behind them like an endless grave. Vinny realized he was standing at the exact spot where his old life ended, and something unrecognizable began. So what's my price, Sophia? Your freedom, your reputation, your chance to die as something other than a convicted felon. She held out a thick manila envelope. Everything you need to bring down Tommy Marconi and Arturo Guzman. Names, accounts, transaction records. You testify, they go to prison, you disappear into witness protection with a clean slate. Vinny stared at the envelope, without taking it. And if I refuse, then my team releases everything we've collected to the FBI, the IRS, and the Chicago Tribune simultaneously. You die in federal prison, and I become the prosecutor who took down her own father in service of justice. Sophia's smile turned predatory. Either way, I get what I want. The only question is whether you get anything you want. The wind picked up, carrying the sound of distant sirens. Time was running out for both of them. You know what the real tragedy is? Vinny's voice carried across the water like a confession. I'm proud of you. Sophia's mask flickered. For just a moment, something human showed through the prosecutorial armor. I'm proud that you're principled enough to destroy your own father for what you believe is right. I'm proud that you're smart enough to outmaneuver both the FBI and the outfit. I'm proud that you learned to play this game better than me. Vinny opened the envelope, scanning the financial records that would dismantle Tommy Marconi's empire and send Arturo Guzman to federal prison for life. But you made one critical mistake, sweetheart. The same mistake your mother made. What mistake? You assumed I was weak enough to choose myself over the people I love. Vinny tore the envelope in half, then quarters, letting the pieces scatter in the lake wind like confetti at a funeral. Sophia's contractors raised their weapons, but she held up a hand to stop them. That was your only copy of the plea agreement, Dad. Your only chance at witness protection. I know. Vinny pulled out his phone, showing her the screen, a number he'd memorized 30 years ago but never thought he'd have the courage to call. But you forgot something important about your old man. I've been compartmentalizing my whole life, keeping my legitimate business separate from my criminal activities, keeping my family separate from my sins. Tonight, I'm finally going to stop. Sophia's eyes widened as she realized what number he was calling. Dad, don't... Tommy, it's Vincent. Vinny's voice carried across the pier with terminal calm. I'm at Pier 19 with my daughter and her private army. She's been running a long con, collecting evidence on both our organizations. Everything we've discussed over the past 3 years has been recorded. Through the phone, Tommy Marconi's voice turned arctic. How do you want to handle this, Vincent? Sophia was backing toward her team, finally understanding that her father's weakness, his love for family, was about to become her downfall. Dad, you don't understand what you're doing. These people will kill you. They were always going to kill me, Sophia. You just gave them legal justification. Vinny kept the phone pressed to his ear. Tommy, I need you to understand something. My daughter believes she's serving justice. She doesn't comprehend that justice without mercy is just vengeance wearing a badge. Vincent, get out of there now. Can't do that, old friend. This ends tonight one way or another. Vinny ended the call and looked at Sophia with eyes that held 30 years of accumulated regret. You want to know what your price is, sweetheart? What it cost you to become everything you thought you needed to be? The first black Suburban appeared at the far end of the pier, followed by 2 more. Tommy Marconi's cleanup crews, arriving exactly on schedule. Sophia's contractors shifted nervously, finally realizing they were outgunned by professionals. Your price was learning to love justice more than you loved your family. Your mother's price was learning to love your father more than she loved justice. Both of you paid too much. Vinny walked toward his daughter, hands visible and empty. But there's a third option neither of you considered. Dad, get back in the car, drive away, please. The third option is admitting that some situations don't have clean solutions, that sometimes good people do bad things for complicated reasons, that sometimes the best you can do is take responsibility for your choices and try to minimize the damage to innocent people. Sophia's team was retreating toward the water's edge, trapped between the lake and Tommy's approaching vehicles. Her carefully orchestrated operation was collapsing into chaos, exactly the outcome she'd spent 3 years trying to avoid. "I won't let you protect me," Sophia said, her voice breaking for the first time since this began. "I won't be complicit in—" "You won't be complicit in anything." Vinny reached into his jacket and every gun on the pier swung toward him. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a single sheet of paper handwritten, signed, dated tonight. "Full confession. Every crime, every transaction, every compromise I've made over 30 years. Tommy gets his closure, you get your justice, and maybe some of those 12 families get enough settlement money to find better housing." Sophia stared at the document, recognizing her father's handwriting, understanding finally that he'd been planning this moment since the day she'd revealed her true purpose. "This doesn't end with you dying on a pier, Dad." "No," Vinny agreed, watching Tommy's men take positions around the perimeter. "This ends with you learning that sometimes love requires sacrifice, justice demands mercy, and family means choosing to save each other even when you can't save yourself." The sirens were close enough now to distinguish individual vehicles, federal agents, city police, maybe even legitimate FBI responding to reports of gunfire that hadn't started yet. Sophia finally understood her father's final lesson. He'd taught her how to destroy him, but he'd never taught her how to live with the consequences. "You look tired, sweetheart." Sophia pressed her palm against the glass partition, remembering when that same hand used to fit entirely within his. "I keep thinking about what you said on the pier, about love requiring sacrifice. Any regrets?" The question hung between them like smoke from an extinguished cigarette. Sophia had spent 90 days trying to answer it, cycling through anger and guilt and something approaching understanding. Tommy Marconi was serving life without parole. Arturo Guzman had disappeared back into whatever shadow world spawned him. The outfit's construction, money laundering operation had collapsed overnight, leaving a vacuum that cleaner businesses were slowly filling. "I used to think justice was binary," Sophia said finally. "Right and wrong, legal and illegal, guilty and innocent. You taught me it was more complicated than that." "Your mother would have said I taught you the wrong lesson. Mom died before she could see how the story ended." Sophia's voice carried weight she hadn't possessed 3 months earlier. Maybe she would have understood that some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Through the reinforced window, Vinny studied his daughter's face, searching for traces of the idealistic woman who'd believed in absolute moral clarity, finding instead someone who'd learned to live with necessary compromises. "What are you going to do now?" "I've been accepted to a victim advocacy program in Portland, help families navigate the legal system when they've been hurt by white-collar crime." Sophia smiled with an expression that belonged entirely to Maria. "Turns out my experience with complex financial fraud cases is highly valued, even if I obtained it through morally questionable methods." "Especially because you obtained it through morally questionable methods." They sat in comfortable silence, watching other families navigate their own complicated relationships with guilt and forgiveness. An elderly woman speaking rapid Spanish to a son who kept apologizing. A young father showing his daughter crayon drawings through the glass. Lives interrupted by consequences continuing despite them. "There's something else," Sophia said. "I've been working with the families affected by the construction fraud, pro bono legal work, helping them understand the settlement process. Mrs. Rodriguez, apartment 3B in that building, she wants to meet you." Vinny's eyebrows rose. "To thank me or to kill me?" "To understand you." Sophia pulled out a letter, handwritten on lined paper. Her 8-year-old daughter was hospitalized when that faulty wiring caused a house fire. She says she spent 2 years hating the anonymous criminals who put profit over safety. Then she found out one of those criminals had voluntarily confessed, surrendered his assets to pay for damages, and accepted a 20-year sentence when he could have disappeared into witness protection. "I'm not a hero, Sophia. I'm just a man who finally ran out of ways to justify his mistakes." "Maybe that's the same thing." Sophia pressed the letter against the glass. She wrote that forgiveness isn't about declaring someone innocent. It's about acknowledging that people can change, even when change comes too late to undo the damage they've caused. Vinny read the letter through the partition, his lips moving silently over words written in careful English by someone who'd learned the language in order to build a better life for her family. At the bottom, in a child's handwriting, "Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. Mrs. Rodriguez is wrong about one thing, Vinny said when he finished. It didn't take bravery to tell the truth. It took exhaustion. I was tired of lying, tired of compartmentalizing, tired of pretending I could build something good on a foundation of bad choices. Maybe exhaustion and bravery aren't mutually exclusive. The visiting period was ending. Around them, families were saying goodbyes that might last weeks or months or years. Sophia stood to leave, then stopped. Dad, do you remember that joke you made about El Chapo's brother, the one that started all of this? Vinny's face darkened. Every day. I've been thinking about it, about how one careless moment can unravel 30 years of careful planning, about how the things we say in private always find a way to become public. Sophia shouldered her purse, preparing to walk back into a world where she was no longer anyone's daughter, no longer anyone's enemy, just someone trying to build something better from the pieces of what came before. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that our actions have consequences, but that our secrets always find a way to tell themselves. As Sophia walked away, Vinny pressed his hand against the glass where hers had been, understanding finally that some stories don't end with redemption or revenge, but with the simple, difficult work of learning to live with the truth.